Thanks so much for joining us today, everyone. I'm Jen Farmer. I'm the CEO at the Friedreich Ataxia Research Alliance. I'm joined by my colleague, Kellen Madden, who's our Manager of Patient Engagement. And we have a webinar today with Larimar Therapeutics. Dr. Rusty Clayton is joining us. He's going to provide you with an update on the development of nomlabofusp and some of the ongoing studies. Yesterday, Larimar provided a public update as well, so we thought the timing was really good to give the FA community an update and an opportunity to ask questions. So after Dr. Clayton's update, we will open it for Q&A. There is a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to submit questions there. Try to put the questions in the Q&A box, not the chat. Kellen and I are both fairly talented, but it makes it easier if all the questions are in one place. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Clayton, and then we'll move into the Q&A.
Thank you, Jen, for that introduction. And thanks to FARA for organizing this webinar and inviting Larimar to provide an update on our clinical program. For those of you who are not familiar with Larimar, we are a clinical stage biotechnology company located just outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Our lead therapeutic product goes by the generic name of nomlabofusp, which Jen pronounced stunningly. But we're going to call it Nomla for short because it's easier on everybody. Nomla, which is formerly known as CTI 1601, is being developed for the treatment of Friedreich's ataxia. Nomla is a recombinant fusion protein designed to directly address the root cause of Friedreich's ataxia, frataxin deficiency. In our cells, we all make frataxin, which is actually a combination of two proteins, the frataxin protein and another protein attached to it called the mitochondrial targeting sequence. In our cells, the mitochondrial targeting sequence guides the frataxin protein into a part of the cell called the mitochondria. And once inside the mitochondria, the frataxin goes to work. Nomla contains the same frataxin protein we all make in our cells, with a small cell-penetrating peptide added to the end of the protein that allows Nomla to get inside the cells of the body. Nomla is injected under the skin, quickly gets into the bloodstream, and is distributed throughout the body, and then gets into the cells. We are evaluating Nomla in clinical studies, and today I would like to provide some updates on three particular studies: our open label study, our pediatric study, and our upcoming global phase 3 study. Let's start with the open label study, which we used to call the open label extension study, or OLE. Originally, this study was started to enroll patients with FA who had participated in one of our earlier phase 1 or phase 2 studies. Phase 1 and phase 2 studies are typically short, only a few weeks long, and the idea here was to provide an opportunity for participants in prior studies to continue to participate in longer-term studies in the Nomla clinical development program. It has always been Larimar's philosophy to try to include patients with FA across a wide range of disease progression into a long-term study, especially since many longer phase 3 studies have to limit study participation only to a few patients who are relatively early in their disease course. We started the open label study early last year and have been enrolling adult patients with FA who participated in a prior study. We are now expanding the open label study to include adolescents with FA who participated in our pediatric study. More about that study in a few minutes. Today I wanted to share with you a new development regarding the open label study. Larimar has decided to further expand our open label study to also include patients who did not participate in a prior study. Consistent with our philosophy to try to be as inclusive as possible, we will be recruiting participants into our open label study who will not be able to qualify for our upcoming phase 3 study. Participation in a prior Nomla study will no longer be a requirement to get into the open label study. We expect that this change will take effect next month. We will be working with FARA to make sure that sign-up information for the open label study gets out to the FA community as soon as the operational elements are in place. If you think you might be interested in participating in the open label study, please be on the lookout for this sign-up information. We will only be taking a limited number of new participants into the study, and potential participants will be contacted based on when they register. So again, watch out for any announcements regarding our open label study, and be sure to register promptly if you are interested in participating in the open label study. Oh, by the way, there is one more change in the open label study I wanted to bring up. Previously, people taking omavaloxolone had to wait until they had completed 6 months of omavaloxolone treatment before getting nomla as a study drug. And open label study participants who wanted to start taking omavaloxolone had to complete 6 months of nomla as a study drug before starting omavaloxolone. We have recently reduced these times down to 3 months. So, people taking omavaloxolone will only need to wait 3 months before starting nomla as a study drug, and conversely, people in the study who want to start taking omavaloxolone will only need to be receiving nomla as a study drug for 3 months before starting omavaloxolone. We're hoping that this change will make it easier for people living with FA to participate in our open label study if they want to. A little earlier, I mentioned adolescents with FA in our pediatric study, which was a placebo-controlled study intended to evaluate the safety and nomla levels in the blood after 7 days of treatment. We started our pediatric study earlier this year by enrolling a cohort of patients with FA who were 12 to 17 years of age. This cohort of 14 participants completed the treatment period and are starting to transition to enrollment into the open label study. I do want to take this opportunity to thank the participants and their families for their patience and persistence as we work diligently to get these participants assigned to open label study sites as soon as we can. The pediatric study was also going to evaluate a cohort of participants 2 to 11 years of age. We are currently evaluating options that would allow these young participants to enter the open label study without the delay that the adolescent participants are experiencing. One thing we are considering is to enroll these potential participants directly into the open label study. And we're in the process of engaging with our independent data monitoring committee and the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to work through these potential options. We expect to finalize our approach next month. And as with the open label study, we will be working with FARA to make sure that the information regarding the participation of the 2 to 11-year-old patients with FA in the nomla clinical program gets out to the FA community promptly. Finally, regarding our global phase 3 study, I am pleased to report that we have initiated site identification and qualification in the United States, as well as Europe, the United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia. This study will be a double-blind, placebo-controlled study with 1-to-1 randomization of 100 to 150 ambulatory patients with FA, and the study population will be more heavily weighted to younger patients. The study will initially include patients from 12 to 40 years of age, and we plan to extend the eligible age range down to 2 years of age after we get more information from the children who will be participating in the open label study. We expect to begin recruiting for this study just a little later this year. So let me stop and summarize the information I provided so far. Number one, we are continuing to enroll the adults with FA who participated in a prior study into the open label study. That is ongoing. We have started to enroll the adolescent patients with FA who participated in the pediatric study into the open label study. Next month, we will expand enrollment in our open label study to patients with FA who have not participated in a prior nomla study. In order to be as inclusive as possible, we are opening enrollment specifically to patients who are further along in their disease course and would not meet the criteria for our global phase 3 study. We are also evaluating options that would allow us to seamlessly enroll 2 to 11-year-old patients with FA directly into our open label study. We expect to have more information about that next month as well. And finally, we are moving forward with our global phase 3 study. identifying and qualifying sites in the United States, Europe, the United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia. As I've said before, as more information becomes available, we are pleased to work with FARA to get the news out to the FA community as soon as possible. Before we open up for questions, I first want to thank FARA again for the opportunity to participate in this webinar, and while I'm at it, to recognize FARA for all the great work they do on behalf of the FA community. I also want to recognize and thank our study investigators, the study coordinators, and the study teams at our study sites for their dedication and great work. Finally, on behalf of Larimar, a huge thank you to all of our study participants and their families. We understand how difficult it is to participate in these studies, and we are grateful and humbled by your courage and your commitment.